I said I'd nod, but it's the first one of the new year, and we always end up coming on being a bit.
Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon.
No, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Already. We laugh. As everybody knows, we never come into these very smooth and slick, but it's wonderful to be back. Can you believe it? It is the first event of 2024. Delighted to welcome you all. Some of you obviously join these regularly, and some of you will be joining this as the first time. So just to really quickly introduce the panel today. So I'm Charlotte Sykes. I run a business in Northamptonshire. We're a careers coaching and training business. I have my co-founder of Be Career Confident here in Ruth Forster. Ruth, give us a wave.
Good afternoon.
And absolutely delighted to welcome Andy Dunn, who is the Managing Director of Team here today. So many of you will have heard us talking about Team before. So the UK's largest association of independently owned private recruitment firms, and Team is our network. So all throughout the UK of these recruitment firms who work together, share advice, share tips, talk about what's happening in the market, you name it. So Andy, welcome. It's lovely to have you here today.
Thank you.
And obviously, as we go, correct me, tell me where Team, tell us where Team's going, tell us what Team will do, as we go through in our conversation. But today, folks, as we do at the beginning of the year, is we take a moment to step away from the chaos that is work, and we actually give you some insight into what's happening in the market. We'll talk about trends currently, we'll talk about what's happening currently, and also the predictions for the year ahead. So we're going to be looking at different elements of that through our conversation. Please use the chat. Please ask us questions. It's really important, obviously, whilst we are here as a panel, we are also here to address concerns and issues and questions that you might have in real time. So I'm going to kick off, you two, and I'm going to come to you probably first, Ruth, if I may, and say to you, where's the UK market? What's happening in the UK market in your opinion? And then I'm going to go to Andy and start talking.
I think it is still fragmented. It's really interesting. There's a lot of us that sign up to the REC and the KPMG monthly reports that come out on the UK state of jobs. And the past two reports that have come out, we've actually seen in the engineering and manufacturing sector, we've gone against the report. So the report has said that there's been a slowing down in certain areas, and recruitment isn't as strong. Whereas for us, since October, it was really, really strong. So November, December into January, it continues. I still think there's a hesitancy. We've got several things looming, and they're globally looming, being elections. So that will have an impact on people's decision makings, and there'll be an element of cautiousness. But you know what? I'm actually feeling, certainly, as I say, within engineering and manufacturing, which is our specialist area, that owners, CEOs, leadership, people in leadership roles are saying, we've just got to get on with it now. We've had the pandemic, we've had high interest rates, we've had challenges with supply chain. This now feels like 4 years on, we've just got to get through and make things happen. So you will see some different things happening. We're still going to see consistent challenges within the health, NHS and healthcare provision. There's always going to be those challenges. There's a skills challenge across engineering, finance. I still believe drivers. Andy will probably be able to share a little bit more from our team members of what the feedback on that. But I actually think there's an energy and maybe a bit of a right. Okay, you've thrown as much as you can at us over all this period of time, industry. We're just going to get on and get it done. And I hope that will continue into 2024. I don't think 2024 will be a bumper year. I think it will be an okay, solid year. I'm hopeful that 2025 will be a growth year for the UK. Is my thought.
Your thought, really good, thank you. And actually quite interesting. And I'll come back to you from a global point, because I think that's absolutely valid. Because we can't just see the UK as a silo on its own. We are part of a global market. Andy, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Obviously, you get a view not only from Ruth and I, but from all of us throughout the UK.
Well, I've got the very fortunate position where I get to hear from the coalface from members directly. So I've met something like 240 of our members in the last 4 months from some of our regional networking meetings. And echoing what Ruth said, last year, particularly the start of last year and going towards the summer, it was really tough for lots of businesses. But the meetings that we had in kind of September, Q3, September, October, there was a lot of talk of green shoots. You know, lots of new clients coming on board, new opportunities being presented to our members. And I've done obviously my research for this, and I've gone out and looked at some of the stats. I looked at the report that Ruth just talked about from the REC. And obviously Neil Carberry was saying that, you know, the slowdown in the labour market seems to be easing a bit. There's positive things happening from the REC's perspective. And I also looked at one of Team's partners and service providers, Firefish Software, the CRM provider. They've recently released their Future of Recruitment 2024 report. And that survey stated that 60% of recruitment leaders are either optimistic or very optimistic about the year ahead, with only 9% of their recruitment leaders that took part in their survey being pessimistic about the year. And lastly, Sonovate, again, the funding company, another one of Team's partners, said that in 2023 and towards the back end as well, it was the most new startup recruitment agencies ever in the UK. So I think that's a really positive sign. And Team, you know, we've had a bumper Q4. We've had more members sign up in the kind of last part of 2023 than we've ever had before. And lots of those are startup businesses. They're recruitment consultants that have worked in other businesses that understand their market, they understand their niche, and they think, right, I'm going to do it. And they've joined us for that support, from learning from, you know, people like yourself in the networking meetings and in the divisional meetings. But I think that's a really, really encouraging sign. And it's not going to be easy this year. Of course, it's not. And no one's got, you know, no one's crystal ball is going to be absolutely accurate. But I think it's a really positive feeling about 2024.
And isn't that interesting? Because actually, if you think about it, you can't setting up a recruitment firm when your job is looking and helping place and find other people for jobs. Not only are you pulling yourself away from potentially a permanent employment and setting up on your own, but you're also putting faith in the market. So it's saying there is a confidence in the market, and that's really, really positive. And actually, even more positive when you hear, and we'll go into talking about tech and how that's going to influence, you know, the world of AI, how that's going to influence this year as well. But isn't that again interesting? Because lots of people are talking about insurance and recruitment being two of the biggest hard-hitting, you know, hard to be hit industries off the back of AI. So that's really, really encouraging. Ruth, I'm going to come to you and ask about this global side, particularly global engineering and manufacturing, because there's a lot of chat again if you bring in that question of AI, or you bring in where the future of talent and where the future of skills are. What's your thought on where the global market will sit?
Without getting too political, I think there is I see a lot of asking from engineering and manufacturing organisations in the UK for more support from our government, for more strategy around supporting the UK businesses and enabling them to be global. But again, as I've said, they're still doing it on their own without that support. And if you look at the US seem to be investing a lot within those engineering and manufacturing organisations and supporting those businesses, and see that future of innovation, whether it's product innovation. Everybody, what I would say is everybody's got this skills challenge. So this is a global skills challenge. Whether you look at us, the US, Australia, whatever that may be, we have all got skills challenges within whichever pocket it is. But I think it's really exciting. And I actually think it's really exciting for candidates who are looking to move, because if you're thinking, fancy something new, my goodness, the world is your oyster at the moment. Because if you are, and I will caveat that by saying the world is your oyster if you are clear of what you want. So if you understand and not specifics on what you want to do. But if you're thinking, I want to work for this type of organisation that does this, and you're following them and you're researching them and you're connecting with that sector, then when you're in there and then you apply for a role to say, this is what I have been doing, this is what I want to do, this is what I can offer. And also, if then you want to go global, I think there's a lot of opportunity. And Andy, you and I have worked in similar sectors. You've done a lot in defence in previous roles. I think there's a lot of opportunity for people who are maybe not super niche, but have got a broad skill in finance, engineering, marketing, whatever that may be. Would you think there is a lot of opportunity out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the skill sets ultimately are really, really similar. I think the challenge is that defence is a challenge because security clearances are always a big issue. But if you can get over that hurdle, certainly, like I obviously worked in an in-house role for a year before I took this role at Team. So when I was at Thales, I had lots of international engineers wanting to come to the UK, and that was the big challenge, was getting them UK eyes cleared. But if you're working on projects that aren't needing that kind of clearance levels, you're absolutely right. The skill set's exactly the same. And I think there's a huge amount of opportunity out there. You know, talking about America in particular, you know, we've got an international division in Team. It's had some of the busiest meetings over the last couple of quarters. And we've recently done a survey of team members that are looking to expand internationally, and it's been a huge uptake. There's lots of members that are looking to really sort of broaden their wings, look at other opportunities, looking at working the same roles as they do here in the UK, but internationally. And there's so much support available. You know, the Department of Business and Trade is doing a lot of work with us at the moment to support recruitment businesses on their fact finding, trade delegations, trade envoys. They'll do like free research for you, for your client base in America, if you go to them with a plan of how you're looking to expand. So I think there's a ton of opportunity there.
I think there's an interesting point on the visas, because I think it's very, especially for SMEs, it's still a struggle. And again, this comes into the political way of, you know, who can offer visas for skilled workers. There is still a struggle that especially when university students leave, they don't leave their course and graduate. They can only stay for so long on that visa. And it's quite expensive, I think, for organisations, and time consuming. So if you're a big organisation, you've got somebody that's doing that all of the time. But if you're an SME, there's a challenge there as well. So there are some challenges around that unfortunately, as I say, are out of business's control. But who knows what 2024 will bring.
Well, look into our crystal ball and tell you, everybody.
Yeah.
So we kind of we've looked at then where kind of what the UK is doing, where the areas might be for growth, how potentially, again, from an individual's point of view or from a business point of view, you could, you know, we talked then about the recruitment firms expanding into the US, other businesses. If we flip it slightly and then say, right, as an individual, if you are an individual this year, Ruth, looking for a new role or potentially looking to progress your career in whatever capacity, what might you look to do? Where are the areas that you feel are going to be the areas that people could really make sure that that's a strategic part of their career planning for 2024?
I would always, and it depends where you are within your career and what chapter you are within your career of what you look at. Because if you're at the early start of your career, again, like I said, there's lots of opportunity out there. So going with the things that really, really interest you. I don't know about you two, but you know, we spend so much time at work. So getting something that really, really interests you is going to be good for you as an individual and your own purpose as well as your career. And what I mean by that is the people that I see that do really, really well in their careers are the people that are genuinely interested in what the product, service or business are doing. So while they're there, they're really interested and they're engaged and they're learning. And that learning piece is lifelong. Add that to that networking and building your community in the area that you want to build. So it's not connecting with everybody. You don't need to have thousands of connections on LinkedIn. You just need to be following the businesses that you really like, the products that really interest you, the services that you think are good for you and will have benefit for your career, and also the people that you really like hearing from. You know, those companies who put really great videos out and share those career stories of people that have gone before you. So if you watch something and think, okay, I didn't think I could do that. Two, that looks really interesting. And you keep following, and you're building up your knowledge. Then when that job advert comes out, whoa, you've got a wealth of stuff to talk about on your cover letter. And even when you get to interview, because you've been following this company for X amount of months or years, and you've seen them evolve and you've seen what they do. So I think it's that, it's try and find something that inspires you, that you love, and be consistent with your learning and your engagement and your networking. That would be for where I would go.
So I want to pick up on what you said, and I think it's really interesting. I'd love to hear your viewpoint on this, Andy, but that magic word cover letter. So I don't know about you, but I've seen a rise of clients asking for them and people producing really good cover letters. And if I wasn't advising an individual on how to, when, applying for a job, particularly maybe something a little bit niche, I would always advise to do a cover letter. But I don't know, Andy, what would you feel? Could you feel that they're becoming more popular? Do you think it's the thing that's making people stand out again? What are your thoughts?
So back in the day, I had 2 clients ever that wanted a cover letter, and they wouldn't see the CV or consider the candidate until they did it. And their thought process was that if the individual was interested enough in us, they would take the time to write the cover letter. And then that would then weed out a lot of the chaff of just random CVs coming in from different recruitment agencies, from different angles, maybe not actually being that interested in the business. It was semi-successful because some of the amazing candidates that had 100 opportunities in front of them wouldn't take the time to do it. But I mean, I personally, as a recruiter, I was a super niche recruiter. So I was defense, I was systems engineering, and I was security cleared as well. So I had like 3 hoops to jump through. If someone wrote a cover letter to me and they sent it via LinkedIn or with an application or on email, I would always read it.
Yeah.
Is it someone's taken the time to actually, and especially if you're mentioned as the reader in the first part of the cover letter as well, it's directed towards you. It's to get your attention. Anything that Ruth talked about networking, getting in front of people, meeting people, anything that gets you in front of the right person or in front of someone that can help you is brilliant in my experience anyway. So, I think with the use of, the way AI has exploded in the last 12, 18 months, anyone can use that as a template, right? And then you can tweak it and tailor it to whoever you're going to send a cover letter to. But I still think there's a place for them, and I think where some people are moving way out into the extreme tech direction of AI for everything. I've even seen like on X or Twitter, there's someone talking about you can now get a ChatGPT bot or something that you program it, you tell it what you want, it goes out, it actually finds jobs and applies for the job with your CV without you even doing anything. Like, that's horrible. And it's awful. Like, going back to the basics of cover letters, networking with people that are going to be really good for you in your career. I think I know you asked me about cover letters, but I wanted to make this point with Ruth as well. There used to be a big event that I used to go to every 2 years. It was the biggest defense show in the world, held in London. And I used to go for like 2 or 3 days because I was never going to work with all the businesses there, but I wanted to know what was happening. I wanted to see the new tech. I wanted to see the new developments. I wanted to see how big was the floor space of the clients that I was working with compared to other businesses that were there. I'd always pick up a couple of clients from there. and it's a good opportunity to network with candidates as well. But getting out and seeing people, like we spend so much time staring at a screen, like getting out and actually getting a feel for what's happening in the real world, I think is just so important.
And well, let's carry on talking about this because I think it's so valid, isn't it? Let's embrace the bits of tech that we can use that can influence and add value. But there's definitely a shift to keep things humanized. And by that, the look, touch, feel it's a personalized service, feel that you're talking to an individual, because there will always be those people, won't there, that'll say, actually, I need to get to know this person through this document, whether it's a CV, I need to meet them. And absolutely, there's still a really, really big push. So I suppose maybe, is it that AI comes with a little bit of a warning this year to say, yes, know about it, be aware of it, use it for what it's good for, but don't forget the other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to pick up on that, AI for me is a great tool, the same as anything with any tech. We are going to innovate, jobs are going to disappear, but new jobs will come through because there will be new tech. But there's two elements to this. Number one is the businesses are run by human beings. We are the human race, and we need to be, doing that human side of things. And also, there is always going to be jobs that are not tech orientated. I don't know. I don't think we'll be here to see this if this does happen, but porters in hospitals, cleaning staff, people are still going to want a human on the end of a telephone for really critical things. So you can automate some things, but there has got to be that human element. Within engineering roles and manufacturing roles, there's certain operational roles that need a human being to be there. So for me, I totally agree with you, Charlotte. It's that balance of embracing AI, but let's still be unique human beings as well.
Well, as you know, I'm going to quote it, Ruth. Can you believe I haven't talked about it for ages, but one of my absolute favourite books is Digital Minimalism. And it's not saying, and for those of you who haven't read it, please get it. It is absolutely fantastic. It's not about not using tech. It's not about minimalising when you use it. It's saying use it for what it's really, really good at, and then make sure you time. One of the biggest ones there is, our lack of ability to enjoy our own time and enjoy our own company again. We all, who put your hand up if you're guilty if you take the phone when you go for a pee or when you, sit and watch telly. It's always there. And it's actually remembering to humanize it, remembering to be present, remembering to enjoy human contact, remembering to enjoy your own company again. So I think that book actually is really, really valid this year as we move into tech. Digital Minimalism.
Yeah.
Charlotte, but I can put it in the chat. I'll find the link and pop it in.
There's a comment as well in the chat, which I think would be good for us to pick up. So Anthony said, a good cover letter can make all the difference to application. Yeah, 100%. And just to cover that off, we did an interview with an internal recruiter, and he basically said, yeah, he would still always read the cover letter. So there's an element of automation, but cover letters are always read. Keen to hear our opinion on the latest TT trend whereby people are commenting on organisations, e.g. Gymshark, asking candidates to give over IP as part of a recruitment process, e.g. writing a campaign for a new product they are being called for. Oh, sorry. And then the candidates are writing the campaign in the end, presenting it. They don't get called for an interview or don't get the job. And then later on, they've seen their ideas being used. That's an interest. I actually have heard this on a couple of other. Yeah, I've heard a couple of other people say this, but I don't know if it's anything new.
No, you get it happens to you once or twice, right? And then you become as a recruiter, and typically you don't end up working with that client again unless you can really stipulate the experience of the candidate, because it's awful. I've heard that. I've not heard it for a while, but I have stories of that.
I've heard it. So just be cautious how much you give is probably what I would say on that element. Be cautious what you give to the businesses, and also, you know, it's quite a nice way to start talking about clients and the people that you're applying to, because, you know, you're mentioning a brand there straight away, and people will be cautious now going for an interview there. So people do talk.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
think about as well, you know, signing, if you're going to do something like that, or if your client is requesting that your candidate completes an exercise, get them to sign an NDA before the interview. Cover your back, you know, and get it signed on both sides, or don't do the interview.
I think that's really, really good. So I'm conscious, obviously, we always say that our conversations and things will do about half an hour, 40 minutes, you know, and I think actually we've really covered lots. We've looked at the UK market and what the UK market's doing, and where we see, you know, I love always hearing Ruth about the engineering manufacturing, because straight away that goes into a global, you know, a global setting. You know, Andy, hearing those stats about how there are, you know, more and more businesses, particularly recruitment firms, being set up, that's a really, really powerful insight into the market, because that says so many things. You know, for those of us who've got connections within the construction industry, again, as soon as you see construction prices moving and businesses, suddenly development work happening, it gives really good insight. And I suppose, you know, my take on it is absolutely, I would reiterate, I think there is a real sense of just getting on with it now, right? Let's get on. I don't think it's going to be a groundbreakingly exciting year. I think it's just going to be a really solid year, which is good. You know, in a solid year where there aren't as many ups and downs, it's just going to be solid. Let's just get on with it. Let's knuckle down. And the election, you know, that unspoken, AI is continuing to get bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, we've got interest rates again. Interest rates are changing. They've just come down again. You know, we've got another quarter before the end of the financial year, haven't we, before the budgets and everything is set again. Will that change again? So there's definitely some movement to keep an eye on, isn't there?
There is. And I think for a final point, you know, Charlotte, what's your thoughts on what businesses need to do going forward? Or for this year, we've talked about if you're looking after your own career, and, you know, what we think you should do as an individual. But as businesses, if you're hiring or not hiring, what's your thoughts around what businesses need to do for this year ahead?
So I still would say there's a fragility around people. And that fragility, I would suspect, that has come off the back of COVID, but it's a fragility in terms of people needing to feel a little bit more reassured as their job's safe, reassured that their employers are the type of people that they want to work for, do the values align, you know, all of that. I think there needs to be a lot of care, consideration, and looking after your employees, whether that's offering them coaching. I've seen a huge spike in businesses offering coaching and training to their teams, just as a commitment to say, listen, we might not be able to give you that £10,000 extra that you want. However, you know, you are a valued employee. We'd like to look at offering you support through this, whether it's professional continued development, or whether it's training and coaching. But I definitely think that looking after them, you must look after them, because again, if you look after them and you value them, they'll stay, which obviously keeps your recruitment costs and your recruitment turnover down. But likewise, from a brand point of view, when it comes to further recruitment, you've got a great message going to the market, because you've got a happy team. So yeah, that's why.
And Andy, it'd be good to get your thoughts, because you'd say you've been internal, external, and part of a business. But certainly from my observation at the moment is, even if you're not recruiting,
get back to that's my
yours is get back to people. Yeah,
like, make sure that your EVP like actually is true, and it's not just lip service to the market. You know, if someone applies for a role, don't leave them waiting for months or weeks or whatever before you get back to them. Like, those are the kind of things you can use AI and automation for, just to make people aware that they're still being considered. But I just think, you know, don't ghost people. Live the EVP. If your EVP states that you're an inclusive employer, or that you're flexible with your working, stick to that. Yeah. And as Charlotte said as well, look after your existing staff. You know, if there's signs of burnout, support them. You know, give them time, give them space. But that's my key points as a wrap.
Absolutely.
And if you're not recruiting this year, don't forget your brand and your marketing, because you'll be at a standing start again next year. Whereas if you just showcase what's happening within your business this year, keep doing that, then you've got a place to start from. If you then need to start recruiting and your EVP is already showcased and developed, that would be my takeaway as well from what I see people do.
Isn't it? We always talked from an individual point of view about the importance of continuing to develop your network, always, whether you're in work or looking for work or, comfortable and not looking, you need to always do that, because you never know. And exactly, Ruth, I totally agree with you. Keep going with your marketing, keep going with your message, keep going, making sure you're EVP, and tell the stories, because everybody assumes that everybody knows what a business is doing, but don't. If you don't tell people what you're up to, people don't know. And absolutely. So, folks, we've hit 1 o'clock. I hope that's been insightful for you all. I hope that's given you a little bit of a kind of an understanding of where we see the market. Obviously, we'd love to hear your opinions. Please reach out to us, stay in touch with us. Look at Team for those of you who are in the recruitment space, potentially not aware of it. Please, obviously, reach out to Andy and get in touch as well, but then continue following Be Career Confident throughout the year for future events. But thank you, Andy, very much for joining us. Lovely to have you on board. Thank you for your research on the stats. Super, super insightful. And Ruth, as always, a pleasure.
Pleasure as always. Have a very good rest of the January. See you soon.
See you soon.